the language of mathematics. So the aim of this chapter is to introduce you to a mathematical way of thinking that can serve you in a wide variety of situations. Often, when you start to work on a mathematical problem, you may have only a vague sense of how to proceed. So kung minsan kapag meron tayong nakikitang problem, hindi lang naman sa mathematics, pwede rin naman sa mga sciences. So, one way para masagutan natin ito is syempre dapat naaral mo yung mga examples. Pwede mo pong tignan yung mga figures or yung mga pictures para mas ma-interpret mo siya, mas ma-absorb ng utak mo kasi meron tayong tinatawag na photographic memory din. Ano? Kasi minsan tayo, ang estudyante kapag ka nagbabasa, minsan lutang or minsan naman kakaunti yung knowledge natin sa grammar. So, ako po nung ako'y nagre-review para sa board exam, napakalaking tulong sa akin nung naiintindihan ko yung grammar. Kasi nahihimay-himay ko po yung bawat thought or yung pinapahiwatig ng problem. Kung ano yung given at saka yung hinahanap. Okay, pwede din po tayo mag-play around with notation and then pauulit-ulitin po nating basahin yung problem at magfo-focus po tayo sa mga details na importante. And then the closer you get to a solution, however, the more your thinking has to crystallize. And the more you need to understand, the more you need language that expresses mathematical clearly, precisely, and unambiguously. So this chapter will introduce you to some of special language that is a foundation for much mathematical thought. The language of variables, sets, relations, and functions. A variable is sometimes thought of as a mathematical John Doe because you can use it as a placeholder when you want to talk about something but either. So yung variable, alam naman natin na ginagamit natin ito as a replacement doon sa value na pwedeng hindi natin alam. Like for example, yung x, di ba lagi naririnig natin, find x. Hindi natin alam kung anong value ng x. So nire-represent natin as variable x. And then number 2, yung x na yon pwede pong maraming value. So ginagamit nga natin yung variable para po i-replace sa mga values na hindi pa natin alam. For example, consider asking, is there a number with the following property? Doubling it and adding 3 gives the same result as squaring it. So in this sentence, you can introduce a variable to replace the potentially ambiguous word it. So ito pong sentence na ito, papalitan natin itong word na it ng variable. So, pag i-write po natin itong sentence na ito, pwede nating sabihin, is there a number x? Ito po yung x. Kung before sa sentence natin, walang x. Ngayon po, mag-introduce tayo ng variable x with the property that 2x plus 3 equals x squared. Ano ito? Ito po yung sinasabing doubling it. Doubling it, ano ba yung it mo? X yun, di ba? Doubling it and adding 3 gives the same results as squaring it. Next. Consider the statement, no matter what number might be chosen, if it is greater than 2, then its square is greater than 4. In this case, the variable enables you to maintain the generality of the statement and replacing all instances of the word it by the name of the variable ensures that possible ambiguity is avoided. So itong statement na to, i-rewrite po natin at mag-i-introduce tayo ng variable. Paano posibleng mangyaring rewritten nito? So ganito, number n, nag-introduce tayo ng n, might be chosen if n is greater than 2 then n squared is greater than 4. Yung dating its square, naging n squared. So the variable gives a temporary name to what you are seeking so that you can perform concrete computation with it to help discover its possible values. Example, on how to write sentences using variables. Use variables to rewrite the following sentences more formally. Letter A, are there numbers with the property that the sum of their squares equals the square of their sum? So, pag i-rewrite po natin itong sentence na to, pwedeng ganito ang mangyari. Are there numbers A and B with the property that the sum of their squares equals the square of their sum? So, nag-introduce po tayo ng dalawang numbers, which is A and B, or dalawang variables. So, again, punta tayo dito para mas magets. Are there numbers with the property that the sum of their squares equals the square of their sum? Pwede rin naman pong ganito yung way ng pagkaka-rewrite mo. Are there numbers A and B such that the sum of their squares equals the square of their sum? Or pwede rin ganito. Do there exist any numbers A and B such that the sum of their squares equals the squares of their sum? So kung mapapansin nyo, maraming way ng pagre-rewrite ng sentences. Next. Example letter B. Given any real number, its square is non-negative. So, pwede natin ganito i-rewrite. Given any real number R, ito yung variable, R squared is non-negative. So, yung its square dito sa ating given, naging R squared. Kasi nga, ang in-introduce nating variable is R. Or, pwede rin ganito. For any real number R, R squared is greater than or equal to 0. So, interpret natin itong given. Pagka daw po may real number at in-square mo yon, ang sagot daw po, non-negative. So, ibig sabihin, positive yung sagot. So, di ba, ang number na mas mataas sa 0 ay positive or non-negative. So, proceed tayo sa some important kinds of mathematical statements. Three of the most important kinds of sentences in mathematics are universal statements, conditional statements, and existential statements. Universal statement says that a certain property is true for all elements in a set. Like for example, all positive numbers are greater than 0. Lahat daw ng positive number ay mas mataas sa 0. Tama po ba yon?
Opo. Tama po.
Yes. So, example yon ng universal statement kasi the property is true for all elements in a set. Ano yung mga elements natin dito? E di lahat ng positive number, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, up to infinity. Yun nga naman ay greater than 0. Next, conditional statement says that if one thing is true, then some other thing also has to be true. For example, if 378 is divisible by 18, divisible meaning pag dinivide mo siya, whole number yung magiging sagot. 378 po ba is divisible by 18?
Opo. Opo.
Yes. So, meron ditong ikalawa. 378 is divisible by 6 po ba?
Opo.
Yes, kasi
Opo.
whole number yung magiging sagot pag dinivide mo. So, conditional statement siya kasi yung one thing is true, ito po yon first part, then some other thing also has to be true. Ito yon yung pangalawa. Next, given a property that may or may not be true, an existential statement says that there is at least one thing for which the property is true. Like for example, there is a prime number that is even. Ano po ba yung mga prime number natin? Prime number meaning, isa lang po yung factor niya. Like for example, number 5. Anong factor ng 5? 5
1
times...
and 5.
Okay. Oh, another example pa sa prime number.
7.
7,
3
good.
po.
2 po.
3, good.
11 po.
11, good. Ano pa?
33, sir.
33.
13. 17 po.
17, lower.
13.
2.
Okay. There is a prime number that is even. Ano ba po ba yung 2? Even add.
Even
Odd
po.
Even po. Even, sir.
Even siya. So, itong statement na to is an example of existential statement because it says that there is at least one thing for which the property is 2. Sa napakadaming prime number, like for example, 2, 3, 5, 7, 11, there is an even number. Ano yun? Number 2. Kasi sa lahat ng prime number, siya lang yung even, si number 2. From universal, conditional, and existential, punta po tayo sa universal conditional statements. So ito po ay pinagsamang universal at saka conditional. Universal statements contain some variation of the words for all. And conditional statements contain versions of the words if then. So pag may nakita sa statement na for all, at saka if then, yun po ay universal conditional statements na. Universal conditional statement is a statement that is both universal and conditional. Example, for all animals A, if A is a dog, then A is a mammal. So nakakita na po ng for all, meaning universal ito. Nakakita po tayo ng if at saka po then, so ito ay conditional. One of the most important facts about universal conditional statements is that they can be rewritten in ways that make them appear to be purely universal or purely conditional. For example, the previous statement can be rewritten in a way that makes its conditional nature explicit but universal nature implicit. Okay, dito sa ating statement, pwede ka daw po makapag-extract ng purely universal at purely conditional. So, i-extract po natin yung purely conditional. So, ito yon. If A is a dog, then A is a mammal. Saang parte ito ng statement? Dito siya nanggaling, di ba? Sa conditional statement. Kasi ito lang naman yung conditional statement. So, ito yung in-extract ko. Or, if an animal is a dog, then the animal is a mammal. Nire-write lang po na in-extract yung purely conditional. Dito sa ating example. The statement can also be expressed so as to make its universal nature explicit and its conditional nature implicit. I-extract po natin yung universal statement dito. Ito na yon. For all dogs A is a mammal. For all dogs A is a mammal. Or all dogs are mammal. Hindi naman po requirement na ganito dapat yung pagkakakonstruct ko nung yung nare-write kong statements. Basta dapat parehas po yung thought na pinaparating. Example, on rewriting a universal conditional statement, Fill in the blanks to rewrite the following statement. For all real numbers x, if x is non-zero, then x squared is positive. So dito po sa statement natin, importante na maintindihan po natin yung pinaparating niya. So Tagalogin natin. Para daw po sa lahat ng real numbers, kapag daw po yung real number ay non-zero at in-squared mo daw po siya, positive ang magiging sagot. Ano po ba yung mga real number natin? So, di ba? Real number, part siya ng number system. Yung real number, merong counterpart na imaginary number. Di ba sa imaginary number yung merong letter I? Real number, under the real number, you have irrational at rational number. Irrational, ano yung irrational?
5.
Cannot be expressed as a quotient.
Example ng irrational. Yung square root of 2, pi, letter E, irrational. Yung rational number, pwedeng na-express na quotient. Under po noon, yung 0, the negative number, the positive number, or the whole numbers. Okay, pengi example ng real number. O real number, pwede siyang yung mga nasa number line. Negative number, tsaka positive number. Except sa 0, kasi sinabi niya dito, if x is non-zero, for all real numbers, except daw sa 0. Penging real number.
5.
Negative 2.
Negative 2. If x is non-zero, then negative 2 squared is positive po ba? Negative 2 squared, positive po ba? Kasama yung negative sa squared mo, ha? Yes po, positive po siya. 4 ang sagot. Ulit, pengi pang real number. Sagot lang, dali.
Sir, pag fraction po ba?
Pwede rin. Kasi, ang kailangan natin malaman, pag in-square natin, kailangan positive siya. O any fraction, kapag in-squared mo, positive po ba yung magiging sagot? O, titingin lang tayo dun sa sign. O, pag meron akong dalawang positive, pag minultiply ko ba siya, anong sign na magiging sagot?
Positive.
Positive. O, pag meron dalawang negative, pag minultiply ko siya,
Positive.
positive din. So, deadma tayo doon sa numerical value niya. Ang concern kasi natin, yung sign lang kasi nga kailangan natin mapalabas sa positive pag in-squared natin. So, yun lang yung thought nun. Lahat po ng real number except sa 0, pag in-squared po natin yung real number, positive ang magiging sagot, di ba? Yun lang yung gusto niya iparating nung ating statement. Now, i-rewrite po natin ito. So, punan natin yung blank doon sa letter A pag nire-write. So, ito yung isang way ng pag-rewrite nung netong statement na to. If a real number is non-zero, then its square blank. Ano ba yung magiging square ng real number na hindi zero? Anyone?
Positive.
Positive.
Is positive. Ayan na, oh. So, yung bang pagre-write natin sa letter A, parehas ba nung pinapahiwatig katulad dito sa statement na to? O parehas na kailangan magre-rewrite tayo na parehas yung tinutumbok niya. Okay, ito pa yung isang way ng pagre-rewrite. Letter B. For all non-zero real numbers x blank. Anong sagot? Ayan na x squared is positive. Nag-introduce tayo ng x dito, so kailangan papalabasin mo siya doon sa pangalawang parang phrase or thought. X squared is positive. So, lahat daw po ng hindi zero na real numbers, tapos nirepresent ko pa siya ng x, at pagka yung x na yon ini-squared ko, ang sagot, di ba positive? So, same siya ng thought na sinasabi ng original statement natin. Letter C, if x blank, then blank. If x is a non-zero real number, then x squared is positive. Same lang ng thought, di ba? Letter D, pwedeng ganito mo din naman i-rewrite. The square of any non-zero real number is positive. Yun daw pong square ng kahit anong real number na hindi zero ay positive. Letter E, all non-zero real numbers have positive squares. Lahat daw po ng real number na hindi zero ay merong positive square. Nagigets niyo po ba yung kung paano natin i-rewrite? If you introduce x in the first part of the sentence, be sure to include it in the second part of the sentence. Questions? Okay, next. Universal existential statements. A universal existential statement is a statement that is universal because its first part says that a property is true for all objects of a given type. And it is existential because its second part asserts the existence of something. Example, every real number has an additive inverse. Ano yung additive inverse? Like for example, meron akong number 2. Additive inverse meaning i-add ko po yung kabaliktaran niya, ang sagot ay 0. So, 2 plus negative 2 equals 0. Another example, 3. Ang additive inverse ng 3, 3 plus negative 3 equals 0. Paano naman kapag negative number? Negative 1. Ang additive inverse ng negative 1, negative 1 plus 1 equals 0. In this statement, the property has an additive inverse applies universally to all real numbers. Universal siya, meaning lahat po ng real number ay merong additive inverse. Has an additive inverse asserts the existence of something. Yun yung an additive inverse. For each real number. So, existential siya in a way na, di ba lahat ng real number may unique property na additive inverse. However, the nature of the additive inverse depends on the real number. Different real number have different additive inverses. Knowing that an additive inverse is a real number, you can write this statement in several ways. Some less formal and some more formal. I-try po natin i-rewrite ito. All real numbers have additive inverses. Pwede mo pong i-rewrite yun ng ganon. Or for all real numbers R, there is an additive inverse for R. Pwede rin naman ganito. For all real numbers R, there is a real number S such that S is an additive inverse for R. Iba pang example para magets natin. Rewriting a universal existential statement. Fill in the blanks to rewrite the following statement. Ito yung original statement natin. Every path has a lead. Yun daw pong bawat, what is path sa Tagalog? Paso?
Opo.
Oh. Bawat paso ay merong takip. O, yun yung pinapahiwatig niya. I-rewrite po natin, pwedeng ganito. Letter A. All paths have leads. So, naging plural yung path natin, kaya all natin siya. All paths, syempre have kapag plural. Leads, kasi nga, madaming takip, madami din yung paths. Letter B, pwede rin ganito natin i-rewrite. For all paths P, there is a lead for P. Sa lahat daw po ng paths na P, meron daw pong lead sa P. In-introduce mo yung letter P na variable, palabasin mo din siya dito as P din. Letter C, for all paths P, there is a lead L such that L is a lead for P. Nag-introduce ng dalawang variable, pinalabas niya din sa second, thought niya. L is a lead for P. Nakukuha po ba? Good. Next, existential universal statement is a statement that is existential because its first part asserts that a certain object exists and is a universal because its second part says that the object satisfies a certain property for all things of a certain kind. Example, there is a positive integer that is less than or equal to every positive integer. Wait lang po ha. There is a positive integer that is less than or equal to every positive integer. Interpret natin yung statement. Merong daw pong positive integer na mas mababa or equal to every positive integer. Pahingi po na example ng positive integer. Yung pong positive number sa number line, pahingi po ng isa. 8. There is at least positive integer that is less than. Meron po bang number na mas mababa sa 8? Meron, 7, 6, 5. Or equal to every positive integer. Yung 8, pwedeng less than or equal sa kahit anong positive integer. So, yung 8 pwedeng equal sa 8. Yung 8 pwedeng mas mababa. Yung 8 ay merong mas mababang number sa kanya, like 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Nagagets na po yung pinaparating ng statement? Good. This statement is true because the number 1 is a positive integer and it satisfies the property of being less than or equal to every positive integer. So, yung 1, tama po siya kasi pwede siyang equal to every positive integer which is itself na 1. Some positive integer is less than or equal to every positive integer. Pag i-rewrite mo po ito, pwedeng ganito. There is a positive integer m that is less than or equal to every positive integer. Pwede yan. Bakit hindi po lumabas ito sa second thought na variable m? Kasi there is a positive integer m. Nag-iisa lang yung positive integer na tinutukoy niya dito. That is less than or equal to every positive integer. Bakit hindi lumabas na m dito? Diba sabi natin kailangan pag nag-introduce ng m dito, kailangan palabasin natin sa kabila. That is because magkaiba po siya. Yung m na tinutukoy dito, isa lang siya, positive integer m. That is less than 2 or equal to every positive integer. Yung sinasabi ditong every positive integer, hindi naman natin pwedeng sabihin m siya. Kasi every positive, meaning marami siya. Hindi lang siya m. Kaya hindi po siya lumabas sa kabilang tot. Pwede rin naman natin ganito i-write. There is a positive integer m such that every positive integer is greater than or equal to m. Or there is a positive integer m with the property that for all positive integers n, m is less than or equal to n. Okay. Other example, on rewriting an existential universal statement, fill in the blanks to rewrite the following statement in 3 different ways. There is a person in my class who is at least as old as every person in my class. Okay, so anyone na pwedeng magtagalog nitong tot na to? Paan na lang ng mic ha kapag merong gustong mag-share.
Sir, try po.
Go.
Yun po ba yun, there is a person? Yun po ba yung tatagalogin?
Eto, there is a person in my class who is at least as old as every person in my class.
Ano po? Meron isang tao sa klase na kung saan kasing edad ng bawat tao dun sa klase na yun. Tama po ba?
Pwede. Or merong tao sa aking klase na halos kasing edad siya ng kada tao sa klase. Parang ganon. So, basta nagigets nyo na yung sinasabi ng statement. Nagigets nyo na ba?
Apo, sir.
Oh, good. O, i-rewrite ko daw po siya. Ganito yung isang possible na sagot. Some blank is at least as old as blank. So, fill in the blanks po. Pero dapat, pag kinumpleto ko siya, same thought ng pinapahiwatig nitong original statement. Anyone?
Try po. Sir.
Go.
Some person in my class is at least as old as every person in my class.
Very good. Correct yun. Ano? Letter B. Anyone?
Sir,
Letter-
try.
Oh, go.
There is a person P in my class such as that P is as old as every person in my class.
Okay, good. Pero kompletuhin natin, ha? Again, lagyan mo ng at least. Go. Letter B.
There is a person P in my class such that P is at least as old as every person in my class.
Very good. Tama yan, ano? Letter C. So, sa letter C, naglabas po ng variable na P at saka Q. Sa next thought, lumabas yung P. Anong kulang? Anyone? I'll go.
Sir, try po. There is a person P in my class with the property that for every person Q in my class, P is at least at least as old as every Q person in my class. Person Q in my class.
Okay, good. Pero i-ano natin ha, mas paikliin pa natin. There is a person P in my class with the property that for every person Q in my class, P is at least as old as Q. Again, pakiulit. Sino yung last na nagsalita?
Ako po.
Go.
There is a person P in my class with the property that for every person Q in my class, P is at least is as old as Q po.
Good, very good. So our next topic would be the language of sets. Okay, set is a collection of elements that was introduced by George Cantor in 1879. For example, if C is a set, is the set of all countries that are currently in the United Nations, then the United States is an element of C. Another example, if I is the set of all integers from 1 to 100, then the number 57 is an element of I. So kung meron po akong set na letter I, at ito po ay from 1 to 100, yung 57 isang element ng I, ng set I. So element din po ng set I yung 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 hanggang 100. So notation po tayo. Pag may nakakita ng ganito, ang pagkakabasa po dito ay X is an element of S. Kapag may ganito, X is not an element of S. So yung ganito, the set whose elements are 1, 2, and 3. And then the set of all integers from 1 to 100. And then we have the set of all positive integers. So pag nakakita po ng ganito, ang tawag dito ay ellipsis. Pwede mo po siyang basahin ng and so forth. Or the set whose elements are 1, 2, 3, and so forth. Or the set whose elements are 1, 2, 3, up to 100. Pwede rin naman yon. The axiom of extension says that a set is completely determined by what its elements are, not the order in which they might be listed or the fact that some elements might be listed more than once. Ano daw po yung mga elements niya? So ang elements niya is 1, 2, and 3. And then yung set A, B, and C, iba-iba lang po siya ng way to represent. Kasi po, hindi po nagmamatter sa set kung ilang beses mo po sinulat yung elements at kung ano po yung order ng mga elements. Letter B, hindi po equal ito kasi po ito po ay may set na may elements sa 0. Ito po ay the number 0 itself. Letter C, how many elements are in the set? The set whose elements are 1 and the set who has 1 elements. So, ang sagot po dito, dalawa po yung elements niya. Ano yun? Yung 1 po at saka yung set na may element na 1. Okay, letter D, for each non-negative integer n, let u sub n equals the set whose elements are n and negative n, find u sub 1, u sub 2, and u sub 0. So, yung n po, papalitan mo lang po yan ng 1. U sub 1 equals, ano ba yung n natin? Di ba yung n, pinalitan natin ng 1. So, yung n dito, magiging 1 lang din, and negative 1. Yan ay magiging sagot para sa u sub 1. Yung u sub 2, 2 at saka negative 2 yung elements ng set. Yung u sub 0, 0 po at saka negative 0. However, hindi po natin sinusulat yung negative 0. So, magiging 0, 0 na lang siya or 0. Sana lang ano. Next, the language of sets. Certain sets of numbers are so frequently referred to that they are given special symbolic names. These are summarized in the following table. Pag nakakita ng R, minsan naka-bold letter sa ibang book, yun po ay set of all real numbers. Pag nakakita ng Z, set of all integers. Pag nakakita ng Q, set of all rational numbers or quotient of integers. So, minsan po, nagkakaroon ng ganito. Minsan nagkakaroon tayo ng addition ng superscript plus or positive or negative or the letters non-neg. Halimbawa po, pag nakakita ng ganito, lahat lang po ng positive real numbers yung hinihingi niya. Pag nakakita ng ganito, lahat daw po ng non-negative integers. Another way to specify a set uses what is called the set builder notation. Let S denote a set and let P of X be a property that elements of S may or may not satisfy. We may define a new set to be the set of all elements S in X in S such that P of X is true. O, pag nakakita po ng ganito, ganito daw po siya basahin. The set of all elements X in S such that P of X is true. Again, the set of all elements X in X such that P of X is true. Okay, kayo naman, pabasa naman po. Anyone? Ito lang siya, ito lang siya. Angeline.
Sir, yung babasahin pa yung nasa baba po.
Yes.
The set of all elements S such that P of X is true.
Okay, kulang ng X. Isa pa.
The set of all elements X in such that P of X is true.
Isa pa, kulang ng S.
The set of all elements in
Ito, basahin mo sa taas. Ayan na yun.
the set of all elements X in S, P of X is true.
Good. Isa pa.
Wala ko.
Lark.
Wala mo rin po ba?
Lark naman, Lark.
Sige ba. The
Basta.
set of all elements X in S such that P of X is true.
Very good. Next. Charm.
The set of all elements X in S such that P of X is true.
Good. Isa pa. Pakibasa nito. Ivan.
The set of all elements
The set of all elements X in S such as the set of all elements X in S such that P of X is true.
Good. O, next, Charm. Baka umiyak.
the set of all elements X the set of all elements X is equals to equals to P of X is true.
Again, the set of all elements X in S such that P of X is true. Again, Charm.
The set of elements X in S is
Such that.
ano nga, sir? Such that P of X is true.
O, isa pa. Ayen.
The set of all elements X in S such that P of X is true.
Very good. Ayan. Okay, next. Example, using set builder notation. Given that R denotes the set of all real numbers, Z is the set of all integers, and Z positive, the set of all positive integers, describe each of the following sets. Letter A. The set of all element X in R such that the set of all elements X in R such that X is greater than -2 but less than 5. Letter B. The set of all elements X in Z such that X is greater than -2 but less than 5. Letter C. The set of all elements X in Z positive such that X is greater than -2 but less than 5. Okay, ano daw pong sagot? Ano daw po yung mga number na naandito? So, simply, ito po, ang una niyong titignan. So, kailangan daw po lahat ng number na magiging sagot ko, pasok dito sa real number. Ano po ba yung hinihingi ng X? Dapat ibigay ko daw po yung value ng X na dapat mas malaki yung value ko kaysa sa -2 at dapat mas maliit siya sa 5. Ano yung mga number na yon?
-1, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4.
-1, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. Correct. Next, letter B. Kailangan daw po siya ay positive kailangan daw po siya ay integer na hindi na hindi bababa sa -2 at hindi tataas sa 5. Ano yung mga yon? Yung -1, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, yun po ba ay integers?
Opo.
Yes.
Yes po.
Yung -1 po ba, pasok dito? Kumbaga yung -1 ba, mas malaki ba sa -2, pero hindi lalaki sa 5?
Opo.
Good.
Opo.
Yung 0 po ba, mas malaki sa -2? Pero mas malaki po ba yung 5 sa 0? Yes. So lahat ng yan papasok doon sa ating pinapahiwatig dito sa set. Letter C. Lahat po ng positive integers. And then magsasatisfy dapat dito. Ano po yon?
0, 1, 2, 3, 4.
Kasama po ba ang 0?
Opo.
Hindi daw po. So, ang sagot dyan ay 1, 2, 3, 4. Ayun yung solution. Tama na. So, yung letter A, dinrawing lang po siya into number line. Pero same lang din naman po. Ito po ay open circle, meaning hindi kasama yung negative 2. Hindi siya kasama. Open circle lang din siya, hindi po kasama yung 5. Pero kapag ka meron siyang ganito na symbol, closed circle siya, parang dot na merong kulay yung loob. Meaning kasama yung pinataka na number na yun.